there are steroids injected into the WNBA, and it's controversy galore. It's what the WNBA needed. It's what college basketball had with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, where Angel Reese she's jealous. We had the topic yesterday. There's jealousy abound, and the jealousy was there during the college basketball era for her at LSU as well. It started after they won the national championship over Iowa and continued the season after, where they lost in the Elite Eight on Iowa's path to the championship game. But here is Angel Reese saying some things that I don't disagree with, but saying it in a way that comes across just like it always has, jealous.
It all started from the national championship game, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now. And understanding, negative things have probably been said about me, but honestly, I'll take that, because look where women's basketball is. People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, just because of one single game. And just looking at that, I'll take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. And if I want to be that, and I know I'll go down in history, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
So, Chad, you can hear the frustration in Angel Reese. She's telling the media, hey, it's not just because of her, it's because of me.
Cut a bit of a promo there at the end by saying, I want you guys to realize this.
She's not all wrong. I mean, I jumped on the bandwagon of the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese saga in college and throughout their final 2 years because of not just Caitlin Clark, but because of Angel Reese. I tuned into the Elite Eight matchup this past March because of Angel Reese.
Where Caitlin Clark got her revenge in that game.
But it was you needed that ingredient to build up the hype that became the rivalry. So she's not wrong. But to bring it up now, let's just say that everyone seems tired of hearing about Caitlin Clark's name except for the fans that are now all in on Caitlin Clark and really only know about Caitlin Clark because of following her in her career at Iowa, which is fine, and it's perfect for the WNBA. But the jealousy that's just ringing in that comment is laughable, given the fact that Angel Reese and her brand was built up even more due to the rivalry that was between her and Clark. And forgive me if I'm wrong on this. What were her comments like after the championship, after this Elite Eight loss? Where there was
the worst year of her life.
Where there was a pity party being thrown, and she didn't want to play the villain role, but she, all of a sudden she's perfectly fine playing the villain. Now maybe I'm paraphrasing that in a way that didn't come across at the time. She's taking on the bad guy role now, but she didn't want to take on the bad guy role throughout the college career, which is why it was the worst year of her life, right?
Yeah.
Now she's playing with Kennedy Carter, who has played that role and played it well, albeit I didn't know about her role until Caitlin Clark entered the conversation. And I think that's the overall point here, is no one wants to admit that it's Caitlin Clark as the added ingredient that makes the WNBA relevant.
Well, it's Caitlin Clark, and then, Angel Reese has a part in it, but, it's Caitlin Clark, and then you go way down, and it's Angel Reese. Now, I'd put in the middle their matchup in that national championship game, helping to launch Caitlin Clark, the women's game, Angel Reese, the LSU-Iowa women's basketball rivalry into the stratosphere. So in that game, with the trash talk and the you can't see me, to Caitlin Clark, that was a big part of it, and that got a lot of talk. So I agree with Angel Reese that she had a hand in it, and the popularity of it, and we should not forget that about it. But it wasn't Angel Reese's debut with the Chicago Sky that had over 2 million viewers tune in. The most viewed WNBA game since the league opened back in the 90s. Since the very first game, I think that was on NBC, the very first time they played. So let's get it straight in terms of who's really driving interest in the league. Yes, Angel Reese had her part in it. She continues to have her part in it and playing the role of the heel. But it is Caitlin Clark's league. That's the reason for the interest. And, you can bitch about it, You can complain about it. You can be jealous over it. But you got to acknowledge facts, and that's that people care about Caitlin Clark, and now they care more about the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark, and that's pissed a lot of people off, but that's reality of where it is right now. Now, the Angel Reese stuff, we talked about this, Hutton, after they got put out by Iowa.
Yeah.
I like Angel Reese cutting the promo that she cut. I would like it a lot more if she believed it. My problem with Angel Reese is she likes to pretend that I'm okay being the villain. You guys are going to say whatever about me, so I'm just going to embrace that role. She hasn't embraced it because she almost had a meltdown after they lost and was not okay with being depicted as the villain. And then she wonders why she's being depicted as the villain when she's celebrating a cheap shot, both online and during the game with her teammate.
London elbowed her too.
Yeah, when it's a flagrant one on her teammate and celebrates it, she elbowed. I mean, that was whatever. I thought Caitlin Clark exaggerated a bit on that one, but you're not the villain because America has decided that you're the villain. You're the villain because you're the one maniacally celebrating a cheap shot, flagrant one foul on Caitlin Clark for no good reason. You're the villain because in victory, you're standing over her, taunting her in defeat. That's why you're perceived as the villain.
And taunting her.
And that's fine. Like, if you're going to play that role and accept it, and that's going to help the popularity of the league.
No, I think that's who she is.
I don't like the talking out of both sides of her mouth, though, where suddenly she's upset that she's the villain at times.
Well, I don't think she's upset. I think she's jealous that she's not on the opposite end of being praised instead of being looked at as the villain, quote unquote, or like she said after she played her final college game, quote, I don't really get to stand up for myself. I have great teammates. I have a great support system. I've got my hometown. I've got my family in the stands up for me. I don't really get to speak out on things just because I try to ignore and try to stand strong. I've been through so much. I've seen so much. I've been attacked so many times. Death threats. I've been sexualized. I've been threatened. There's so many things, and I've stood strong every single time. I just try to stand strong for my teammates because I don't want them to see me down and not there for them. I'm still human. All of this has happened since I won the national championship. I said the other day, I haven't been happy since then. So then she has some of her teammates take up for her in that same presser. And then fast forward to the WNBA season, and here we go with the Reese Clark saga again. But don't get it twisted. Caitlin Clark talks a lot of trash too. And the whole "you can't see me" saga was through a gesture that Clark had made after making big threes and everything else. But that built the drama and the circumstance of what became that rivalry and drew eyeballs to the product. And that's what's happening right now with the WNBA. Clark's brought the audience. How do you keep the audience? It's happening right now by embracing the role. And honestly, it's just true to who she is on the court, Angel Reese. I'm not for the death threats. I mean, of course not. If she's facing that, if she's facing other types of ridicule. But, Chad, there are those who take it on and step forward and those who don't. Kennedy Carter has apparently been doing this throughout her WNBA career. Again, it's Caitlin Clark that's brought that to light. And Carter saying she has no regrets whatsoever. Doubling down. And they chose to speak with the media together after one of their recent practices. And she says she has no regrets. I'm going to compete and play 100 hard no matter what or who it is or who we're playing. And she said and doubled down on social media the night of the game, saying that that's that on that. And, we'll see if, I'm paraphrasing, we'll see if Clark can just continue to shoot threes and that's it or not. But as far as the drama is concerned, there are two names now that you can put behind all this. And it took place on the court when, we saw big ratings for the draft, big ratings for her debut, and we haven't talked in terms of massive numbers until this matchup, and they chose to have the display of the villain role at the right time. The popularity is skyrocketed, but it is due to the drama that has been injected into the Caitlin Clark storyline. If she's just a badass who hits threes all the time, and everyone's going up and shaking hands with her and trading jerseys, swapping jerseys with her after the game. At some point, you've seen it, you've been there, you've done that, and it turns into a Steph Curry type role. No one's talked trash to Steph Curry. Meanwhile, you have some Draymond Green aspects to this that stir the pot and lead us to want to watch the next matchup.
We need the rivalry. We need the divide between these players, these teams. That's going to fuel interest in the WNBA. I'm all for it. We could piecemeal this let's go piece by piece here. I don't think Angel Reese is totally okay being the villain as much as she says that she is. And her reaction to the loss in the Elite Eight shows me she's not fully comfortable with it yet. I want her to get comfortable with it because this is who she is as a player.
She wants to be loved for it.
She is going to talk shit. She is going to elbow people. She's going to let you know about it. She's going to cut promos and interviews. Fine. I want her to embrace that role fully and then not be confused as to why people don't always like how she's behaving on the court and be okay with that.
I think she wants to talk the same type of trash that Caitlin Clark does and then be praised for it postgame and play that role postgame.
Right. Now,
I think that's where the jealousy wraps up in.
Yeah, but also I would say that I haven't seen a lot of Caitlin Clark going right into a girl's face and trash talking her. Now, she does a lot of things to the crowd. She did the you can't see me.
She goes at the refs.
She goes at the refs constantly, and that's annoying and all of that. I've yet to see where Caitlin Clark has gone and done what Kennedy Carter did to Caitlin Clark.
Right.
Take a cheap shot to that level.
Right.
I've yet to see that and then standing over someone and talking trash. Maybe we will. She's a fierce competitor also. We might see that at some point. So I'm not going to say they're exactly the same in how they behave on the court. All of this stuff is good, ultimately, for that. Let's put that quote back up there from Kennedy Carter, if we can.
Well, Kennedy Carter's one thing. We're talking Angel Reese, though. I haven't seen Angel Reese do the shoulder check either.
Yeah, I'm going one by one here. Kennedy Carter, she elbowed her, and she told her about it when she was on the ground,
Clark
too.
Flopped.
Yeah, and she's saying, get
on the elbow.
Yeah, probably. Kennedy Carter said, quote, I have no regrets. I'm going to compete and play 100% hard no matter who it is or who we're playing. Here I think is the difference between Kennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark. Kennedy Carter's team lost by 1 point in this game. She committed a foul that led to free throws in the game. That later became a flagrant one. There's no talk of that with the Chicago Sky losing by 1. If you have no regrets after that, then you should be saying that because you won by 20 and you feel like you got your team going. The response is we lost by 1 point. I can't put my team in a compromised situation. This is who I am from a fiery competitor standpoint, but I probably need to check myself a little bit, not get a flagrant one to hurt the team.
Against a bad team in Indiana.
That's not, yeah, and they lost to the worst team in the league. Well, actually Chicago's the worst team in the league.
But another team that's losing is my point. But it gets a ton of, they're on national TV, but they're losing every game.
Well, it makes it even worse. They lost by 1 point to an awful Fever team.
Sure.
In a game where she got a flagrant one. So,
but it took how many days to reference the 1 point loss in the storyline?
Well, I'm referencing it now because yesterday, Hutton, she said, I have no regrets. I'm going to compete and play 100% hard no matter who it is or who we're playing. I hate that if I'm a coach, and I see her say that. I hate that because you lost by 1 point and you have no regrets that you got a flagrant one foul.
I don't know.
There are ways to compete by not doing that.
But it was upgraded to a flagrant one.
Right.
After the game.
Yeah. And I think she's going to have some sort of suspension, right?
But because of that? In the moment, it wasn't that. It was after the game.
Yeah. She
upgraded after the game was concluded.
I believe you should regret committing a flagrant one foul in a game and losing by 1 point. If my team loses, I've got regrets, especially if I did something stupid over the course of the game.
Well,
now, if you win by 30 and you're like, hey, I got the team fired up and I don't like this girl, which clearly she doesn't, then that's another story. But I don't like that she has no regrets about it if I'm the coach. Now, do I like it because it's creating more rivalries in the league? Yeah. I like Kennedy Carter and Angel Reese playing the villain here with Caitlin Clark. It makes it more interesting. I'm with you in that I don't want a bunch of glad handing all game and just handing over the ring to her or the crown of Queen Caitlin. You are now the head of the WNBA and you're the best player in the league. No, make her earn it. I'm all for that and the competition it takes to do that. And I don't think Caitlin Clark wants it handed to her. I think she wants a little bit more fairness with the whistle. I think her coach does too. You know, there's a difference between giving her the calls, but also calling some fouls that are there when they happen and not just swallowing the whistle on everything. But, hey, regardless of all of it, and what you may feel about Caitlin Clark or what the league feels about her and what everyone else in the media or whoever feels about Kennedy Carter or Angel Reese or anyone, we're talking about it.
Well, it wasn't a flagrant foul in the game. It was just a common foul.
Yeah, they had to come back and say that
after
it was a flagrant foul.
So it's not that she's saying that she has no regrets because in the moment it was just a common foul. And Clark even said, I wasn't expecting the hip check. It is what it is. It's a physical game. She's saying all the right things too. But, you know, the backlash from both sides. And hey, do her teammates have any regrets about not taking up for her in the moment? That's the other storyline here. It seems like everyone's viewing this as, oh, this is the rookie tax that she's coming in and having to pay because we've all had to do that. Diana Taurasi has said that, right? So as far as playing 100 and playing 100 hard, no matter who it is, that Kennedy Carter's apparently done that. I'm aware of it because of Caitlin Clark. And honestly, I'm only aware of it right now because I wasn't paying attention to the game in real time. I was paying attention to the storyline on social media.
Yeah.
But they're still getting the numbers, and they'll continue to climb now because of this storyline. Not because Caitlin Clark's going to play and maybe they're going to win a game. I don't think anyone's tuning in to see the Fever win. They're tuning in to see Caitlin Clark play and who's going to hip check her the next time. You know, who's going to play hockey instead of basketball against her.
Yeah.
And also, will the WNBA want to clean this up? Because it leads more towards the controversy than the LeBron rules or the Jordan rules, which apparently she hasn't earned yet. I'm saying that based on the fact she's fouled less than 3 times per game on average. That's also part of this, is what will the league want to do to attempt to clean it up?
Yeah.
And to their credit, the Fever, the GM and the head coach are sending plays into the league. I mean, honestly, though, the WNBA sits back and says, hey, we're negotiating a television contract, and we're sitting great right now. The Golden Goose is being talked about, and so are other players who maybe we didn't know by name in watching the sport. We knew Angel Reese, but we knew Angel Reese because of the play of Clark that led to the two. You know, they're paired together. Now Carter's paired with that. She's not an idiot for choosing when and where to do this. And choosing how to do it. And it sparked because of something that Clark apparently did on the other end of the floor seconds prior on a rebound attempt. I mean, I think it's great. And the whole physicality aspect. I mean, Chad, did you know the WNBA to be a physical league?
No, I didn't know
That's
anything
what everyone's
about the
trying
WNBA.
to say.
I laugh at the people who act like they knew a lot about the WNBA before. Some did.
Well,
I'm sure Monica McNutt knows a lot about the league. I think, what's her name from ESPN that we played the clip of yesterday? Blanking on her name right now. Elle Duncan knows a lot about the league. I don't deny that. Anyone who refers to it as the W probably knows a lot about the league and a lot more than me. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know
Doesn't stay at the
history of the league.
They attend the W
I didn't
games.
know it was this physical, so I'm going to play ignorant to that. But we're talking about it now, and it's because of Caitlin Clark.
Also, so you mentioned Monica McNutt, who is going after it with Stephen A.
By the way, she did go shoot a free throw on that. That's what I was trying to find.
No, it was a common foul.
It was an away from the ball foul, so it's an automatic one free throw in the ball. That one free throw she made was the difference in the game. They lost by 1 point.
A missed layup could have been the difference in the game, too.
Yeah.
Again, like...
Well, I would have a regret if
the
I were her
difference in
about
attention, we're not talking about the Sky and Fever this week. Or Monica McNutt is not arguing with Stephen A. on First Take about not talking about the WNBA 3 years ago compared to now. If not for that foul. If not for that foul.
What are they arguing about now?
They were arguing over why we're talking the WNBA, and Monica McNutt said, Stephen A., you're on a platform where you could have been doing this 3 years ago. And they went on for 20 minutes about it.
Yeah, Stephen A. wasn't happy about that.
It's just
you are not a defender and protector of women that you claim that you are, and here's why.
It's crystal clear though why the ratings are up. I don't know why we can't see that as a
Caitlin
sports
Clark
community.
It's Caitlin Clark. That's why. It is fascinating when you try to really like break down the sensation that is Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
She's the best scorer in the history of college basketball, men's or women's. So there's validity to her being a great player, obviously.
Right.
But it's an incredible phenomenon. It really is. The last 2 years of college basketball and now this early part of the season, WNBA, it's amazing
to watch. A phenomenon, though, but that didn't pick up until that matchup against LSU. In the pardon the pun, the fever that was the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. There was a push towards this. There's this woman in college hoops who's just crushing it. And then you had the ingredient necessary with the taunting and then the loss of not getting it done against Angel Reese, who was perceived to be the top player in college basketball, playing at LSU. That's when it really took off. And the WNBA has it now.
It's got me
and both
thinking
players
that
chose to go pro.
They're a long ways away from it, but if the Fever and the Sky play in a playoff series, I'm like, it's like Pistons Bulls back in the day. Like, I want to see if how many technicals we can get in that series if they go head to head with what's going to happen.
Man, they have a long way to go there just because Pistons Bulls. How many players could we name?
Oh, no doubt. Are we going to get the women's version of Malice in the Palace at some point? With Kennedy Carter and Angel Reese?
Forget needing
the CH in Kennedy really throws me off every time when I even try to say her name. It has me forgetting her last name because Kennedy is not spelled with a CH, and that's the strangest spelling I've ever seen in my life.
How dare you, Chad?
To be pronounced Kennedy. Yeah. That's just very strange.
Kennedy Carter, no regrets. No regrets with the CH either, I bet, Chad. Pat McAfee has regrets, though, for how he described Caitlin Clark on yesterday's Pat McAfee show on ESPN.
The GOAT. Is she what? I don't know. I just, with my eyes, I couldn't see if she's Caucasian or not. So I think what we're trying to say is what the WNBA currently has is what we like to describe as a cash cow. There is a superstar. And we're not saying that the players on the court need to act any differently. That's the athletes are going to do what athletes are going to do in any sport. And I think we're all learning that WNBA, that's old school football, baby. That is old school football. But I would like the media people that continue to say, this rookie class, this rookie class, this rookie class. Nah, just call it for what it is. There's one white bitch for the Indiana team who is a superstar. And is it because she stayed in Iowa, put an entire state on her back, took a program from nothing to a multiple-year success story? Is it because she would go on to break the entire points records in the history of the NCAA, not just the women's record by Kelsey Plum, shout out, but also Pistol Pete Maravich's, the dude's record as well? Is there a chance that people just enjoy watching her play basketball because how electrifying she is, what she did, what she stood for, how she went about going, what she went for? Maybe. But instead, we have to hear people say that we only like her because she's white. And she's the only popular because the rest of the rookie class is doing what they're doing. Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. And we think the WNBA, more specifically, their refs need to stop trying to screw her over at every single turn. What you have is somebody special. And we're lucky she's here in Indiana. And that was, guess which, WNBA rookie.
So that was the Monday edition of the Pat McAfee Show, and he wasn't apologizing for dropping bullshit on the air, but for what he
was not
for what he referenced in the way he described Caitlin Clark. He tweeted the apology yesterday and said, "I shouldn't have used white bitch as a descriptor of Caitlin Clark, no matter the context, even if we're talking about race being a reason for some of the stuff happening. I have way too much respect for her and women to put that into the universe." And he goes into the intentions he was trying to be complimentary, just like the entire segment, but a lot of folks are saying that it certainly wasn't at all. That's 100% on me, and I apologize. And he sent an apology to Caitlin as well. Now, it was a couple of weeks ago, but he had Caitlin Clark live on his show after she was drafted. Of course, he's there in Indiana. Colts are always passing around jerseys. The Colts presented her with a cheap version of their jersey, which was very odd, like the printed on number.
Oh, really? Like the Walmart version of the jersey?
Yeah, that's what McAfee
Screen
handed her.
print?
It's like the Colts sent me this to give to you, and it said Clark, 24, I think maybe. And if it didn't, it just had her number.
When I hear Clark and Colts, I think Dallas Clark.
It looked
not
like
Clark,
the
by the way.
$70 jersey, not the $190 version. You know what I mean? With the sewn-on number. A bit odd there, but nonetheless, you can tell that they're cool, just based on the interaction. That they have talked before and they've talked after, and he apologized to Caitlin there. But he opened the show, spent a ton of time dropping another apology on his show today.
And yesterday, while talking about sports, I utilized a descriptor that I certainly should not have used. Now, to break down the whole story would take about 15, 20 minutes. Obviously, if you haven't heard, you're not on the internet or I think any of the cable news or morning news situations. After about 15 minutes of doing a new game show called Guess Which WNBA Rookie here on this particular program, I utilized the words white bitch to describe Caitlin Clark as being the superstar in Indiana. Now, when I was saying it, I legitimately meant it in a complimentary fashion, like this is the one, and as I said it, didn't even think, honestly had no idea what was happening on the internet until 2.5 hours later after the show ended. Then I realized, and I started reading through a lot of comments that were being said, and I felt like actually the worst human on earth for a good portion of my travels yesterday over to Hershey and then into last night, even during Monday Night Raw and flying home and even into this morning from things that people were saying going, damn, those were not my intentions, but that's how you took it. That's on me. I do apologize to a lot.
Chad, in a world where everyone's looking for the apology, I do find it interesting that McAfee's apologizing for saying the same word and using the same word that Kennedy Carter apparently did on the shoulder check on the play. And I have yet to hear the apology for that. And here's the inner workings of this. You've got ESPN, who, if anyone was described that way down the hallways in Bristol, Connecticut, HR would be updating their sexual harassment video immediately, right? And you'd be called to the carpet. I don't know if you'd be on the air today, quite frankly. But ESPN technically does not list McAfee as an employee. They lease his show that he still has the creative control over. And they pay him, $17+ million a year for that lease. That's what's interesting in all of this is what McAfee continues to do. How many times have we mentioned him in the last 3 months and what he said on air, calling out bosses at ESPN to now calling out the queen of basketball. Some would want to, Reggie Miller would say, why limit her to queen? She could be king. And Caitlin Clark.
Angel Reese would say she's the queen of basketball.
Yeah.
That's what she would argue.
She's the same type player. There's two queens. There are two queens. I'm saying to me, the apology is as much to Caitlin Clark as it is to ESPN, because Pat McAfee clearly doesn't care what he says or when he says it while on ESPN air, because he continues to double, triple, and quadruple down on testing that limit. But he did apologize here. And the apology, is it necessary? Apparently, he was saying the social media was blowing up by the time he reached wherever they were for Monday Night Raw, and he had no idea that it had taken off the way it did. So that's why he was apologizing to everyone that was critical of the way he goes about his show. But again, this is ESPN saying they want Pat McAfee.
They want to be in Pat McAfee.
To be unfiltered, and this was him being unfiltered, and I don't think he meant this maliciously.
No, and on WWE Monday Night Raw last night, which is really funny, he called Braun Strowman a big white son of a bitch on the broadcast. So people are saying, is he really sorry about using that language with Caitlin Clark? Here's the thing about Pat McAfee. I think either the really negative side of social media that was calling him a woman hater and an awful human and all this, he even said, I felt like the worst human being on the planet reading my replies, or someone in Caitlin Clark's camp got to him and she was offended by what he said and what he called her. I believe him that he was trying to say it in a complimentary, like you're a badass type way.
There's only one player.
There is message and there is messenger. And this is true about everything. What Jonathan Hutton says with one word isn't going to be taken the same way what someone of a different race or different sex might say. Same goes for me. Same goes in certain ways. Certain things we say might be taken worse by someone else if they say it. It's message and messenger. There's a lot of women who refer to other women as bad bitches, and that's totally fine. That's seen as a compliment. But if Pat McAfee tries to use that word and say that with the race in front of it about Caitlin Clark, even though his intention is to be funny and to try to project power and compliment her, doesn't matter because it's how people are going to take it, and people are always going to get offended and take it the way that he didn't intend it. So, I buy his apology. I buy his explanation. Hutton, I agree with you. I don't think there was anything malicious about what he was saying or what he was intending. I would also say it's a slippery slope when you start to apologize for anything, especially if you're Pat McAfee.
Well, what he does?
If you want to apologize privately to Caitlin Clark if she was offended by it, I would do that. You could go on and apologize personally to her while also saying we're going to say what we want on this show. And that was an attempt at humor that she didn't find funny or certain people didn't. And for that, I apologize, but we're going to move on and continue to do the same show.
Yeah,
I wouldn't apologize at all if I were him.
But the way he apologizes is doing more than just reading a statement off a teleprompter and moving on.
Yeah.
He spent, 20-plus minutes on this. And I will say this, too, from McAfee's standpoint, too. Like, the whole dynamic behind the scenes continues with this. And he really only... I don't know if I would call this an apology, but Chad, he pays more attention to what the general public on social media responds to him with than what they're saying from up top with the executives. Because remember how he responded to the criticism of him being on College Game Day. He immediately came back and said, you guys don't like me? That's fine. I don't have to do this. I've got a tight schedule. I understand it. Maybe it's just not for me. I'm not resonating with this audience on College Game Day. That was just based on social media replies and critique and some hate for him being on that show. That wasn't because ESPN hated it. ESPN was force-feeding it.
Mm-hmm.
And McAfee himself said, I don't like the replies and the response I'm getting because I'm trying to he's looking for the love.
Yeah.
He's not looking for necessarily stir the pot and piss everyone off because he's on this weekly show that has been going on ESPN for decades, right? Like, he's not trying to upset the apple cart as much as he am being himself. And that's where I think the response and he tweets the apology. You can tell to me, that's not written by anyone but himself. And I think that's the other difference with McAfee versus others. Any other apology is written by the hallways of ESPN.
Yeah, that was all McAfee. I'm with you. I don't think he was forced to do anything. He just wanted to say.
Right.
He wanted to clarify and say his piece on it, which all of that is fine. And McAfee and those guys, they are men of the people. So it does not respond that they respond bigger to their public's response.
Right.
Or outcry or their audience's response as opposed to suits at ESPN or anywhere else. I think they're genuine about that. I think they care when their audience is upset about something or hates something they're doing or doesn't find it funny or whatever the case may be, as opposed to what any middle manager or corporate exec thinks about it. That's kind of their whole thing that they started with in the beginning, going ground up, and it's worked out well for Pat McAfee and his whole crew.
Chad, we're going to get to Michael McHenry coming up in a few minutes, and we'll dive deeper on this later in the show as well. But there's another suspension in Major League Baseball. There's suspensions because other players are involved here, but there's one that gets the boot, that get thrown out of the bar, and it just happens. A month and a half after we had the saga of Ohtani back in April.
Yeah, I still don't think Major League Baseball really cares to look deep into any gambling issues within their sport. I think this is just a little warning shot across the bow with a guy who is a part-time player and is currently injured, and then 4 minor league players. And the guy that's getting the boot from baseball forever, no one's ever heard of him. He's not a star. he barely played, and he's currently injured. So I just refuse to believe that the culture of Major League Baseball, which is when you have a day-night doubleheader, every one of your players goes back to the clubhouse and bets big money on card games, and you're constantly competing, and there's so much downtime that there's not some other player of note that has placed a bet on a diamond sport on a sports app that we've yet to hear about. I think that they might know, and if they don't want to know if that is going on. So, look, I think it's a way to put out the flames of something bigger that's going on and show that you mean business on this. But Hutton, I still look at it and think Major League Baseball is not overly concerned about finding people that are violating this rule because they know what it would mean for their sport.
You know who never bet on diamond sports? Ohtani or anyone tied to him.
Well, I did laugh at, is it Marcano or Marciano Tucapita? He claims that he had no inside knowledge. He bet on, when he was with the Pirates, he bet on the Pirates, he bet against the Pirates, and he bet over-under on runs, but he was hurt with the team, but he says, I just did that with no inside knowledge. I'm like, dude, you're on the team. Of course you have inside knowledge. Like, you could text that night's starting pitcher when he says, man, my hamstrings are a little tight tonight. I don't think I'm going to have a good outing.
Right.
I'm going over on the runs for this team then. I mean, come on, man.